Thanks for joining us on Wellness Talk Radio. I'm Kris Costello, and our guest today is Dr. Stephanie Faubion from the Mayo Clinic, and we're going to be talking about her new book, The Menopause Solution. Dr. Faubion, thank you so much for being on the program.
Thanks for having me. I'm delighted to be here.
I loved the book because it was so comprehensive and it was really easy to read. I mean, you really kind of broke a lot of the different topics down into real understandable information. And what is menopause?
So menopause is defined as no menstrual cycle for a year, but really what's happening in a woman's body is she no longer has the number of eggs, and her ovaries have kind of petered down, and so she's no longer having menstrual cycles because her ovaries aren't generating those hormones anymore. And so as a result, we start to have hot flashes and night sweats. Now, this is going to affect all of us eventually if we live long enough, right? So they estimate that pushing 50 million women are going to be postmenopausal by the year 2020. So that's a lot of us going through this. And if you think about this, anthropologically, this is a new phenomenon that we actually live past menopause. So in the year 1900, the average life expectancy for a woman was age 50. So actually living 40 to 50% of our lifetime in menopause is a new thing.
Is this one of those things where it's just kind of been overlooked a bit? I know Gail Sheehy wrote a book on menopause many, many years ago, which I missed somehow. But there really doesn't seem like there's been that much written about it. Is that right, or am I wrong on that?
Well, I think there have been a few books through the years, but as a menopause practitioner, the reason we wrote this book is I was frustrated because there wasn't a really good resource that I could give to my patients in the office, and I couldn't really recommend anything. So that's one of the reasons. And if you think about it, we usually get a class when we start our periods in 5th or 6th grade. We usually get a class or a book when we get pregnant and have a baby. But nobody really gives us good information when we're hitting perimenopause and menopause. We never have a really good source of information. No class, no book, no nothing. And so many women just go into this befuddled and confused and not understanding all these changes that are happening to our bodies at this time. So that's what actually led us to write this book.
And what I'm wondering, too, is how do you know what is the normal transition? I mean, I know a lot of people have great difficulty with menopause, and then some people just seem to kind of even just sail through it. How do you, as a practitioner, as a doctor, how do you know, like, okay, we need to treat this? How do you figure all that out?
Well, as you said, so some women literally have their last period and don't have any symptoms. Those are the lucky few, I think, and those are typically not the ones that end up in my office. So the ones that ended up in my office are the ones that are having such bothersome symptoms that they're having trouble getting through their day, they're having trouble sleeping at night, so they're waking up without any sleep. They're in board meetings, they're sweating all the way through them. They can't focus, they can't concentrate, they may have mood issues. Even joint aches are a common symptom of menopause that we're just now really recognizing. So those are the women who are super bothered by their symptoms that end up in my office and that we consider treatment for.
Right, and what are the options?
So if the symptoms are mild and a woman is just having a few hot flashes and night sweats, we might start with lifestyle things. And they're common sense things that most women have already tried, like avoiding what you know triggers your symptoms, and that might be strong emotions, it might be caffeine or alcohol, it might even be spicy foods, or things like dressing in layers, using a fan. Those are all kind of things that we've probably thought of. Exercise can be helpful. Maintaining a healthy body weight can be helpful. But if those things don't work, and typically they're not all that effective, and if they don't work, then there are other treatments out there, including hormone therapy. And we now know that hormone therapy is safe and effective for the majority of women who are in their 50s and within 10 years of menopause.
It seems like there's a lot of confusion about hormone therapy. I've talked to a lot of women where they go to their doctor with a lot of symptoms and they actually get no treatment. And then others where they put them on estrogen or, something right away. What is the confusion? What is that all about?
Well, I think this was generated from a study that came out in 2002 called the Women's Health Initiative Study. And the results of that study, when they were published, were confusing, and they were reported all together. And they were reported for women who had a uterus and who didn't have a uterus. And since that time, we've teased apart a lot of this information. And to boil it all down, we've found out that starting hormone therapy in women who are in their 50s and, again, within 10 years of menopause, the benefits outweigh the risks. But for women who are older than that, in their 60s or in their 70s, starting those women on hormone therapy is associated with more risk than benefit. And that makes sense, though, because those women are not the women that are going to come in my office complaining of hot flashes and night sweats for the most part. It's going to be women who are just starting to go through menopause. So for those women, again, we know that hormone therapy is not only really effective, it reduces hot flashes and night sweats by 90 to 95%, but also it's a safe option for these women.
And what's the danger of not treating if you are having problematic menopause symptoms?
Well, there's really no danger other than you feel really bad. So women really, I mean, it's awful to suffer from hot flashes and night sweats. And I've had some people come up to me and ask, hey, what's the big deal? But really, if you see people suffering with this, it's hard to actually get through your day. Now, what are the risks of hormone therapy is another good question. We advise women when we're starting hormone therapy that for those women who do have a uterus, they have to take a progestogen too, along with the estrogen, to help protect that uterine lining from growing too much. And we think that the risk of breast cancer, that's the risk that most people are concerned about, increases slightly after about 5 years of using both estrogen and a progestogen. And we now know that it actually may be the progestogen component that is associated with an increased breast cancer risk. So women without a uterus, those who have had a hysterectomy, can use just estrogen only, and we don't think the breast cancer risk is the same for those women.
And what about, I know there's a lot of women that use kind of the alternative treatments and things that you can just get in your health food store. What is that?
Well, there are a lot of things out there that are advertised for managing hot flashes and night sweats. For instance, black cohosh is one of them. Soy is another. Unfortunately, the literature just really hasn't panned out to support these as really effective treatments. So it's important to note that whenever we do a trial about hormone therapy or about hot flash management, if we give women a sugar pill, that's going to be effective in about 30% of people. So anything that is deemed to be truly effective for hot flash control has to be more than about 30% effective. And so these treatments, like soy, like black cohosh, haven't exceeded that threshold yet.
And then how about bioidentical hormones? There's a whole group that would just always say bioidentical hormones is the way to go, and then the other just standard treatment. What is that?
I'm glad you brought that up. So there's the difference between bioidentical and custom compounded bioidentical. So the term bioidentical just means that the hormone therapy compound is chemically, structurally the same as what your body used to make. And that we actually have available in our local pharmacies and many FDA-approved products that we give to women. So I, in my office, give out bioidentical hormone therapy all the time. And in fact, that's what we prefer because it is identical to what your body used to make. Now, what you're referring to, I think, is custom compounded bioidentical hormone therapy, and that is where pharmacies and other practitioners say, we're going to make this chemical, hormone therapy concoction just for you, and we're going to mix it according to blood levels or saliva levels to be just what you need. Now, the problem there is that these hormone therapy mixtures are not FDA approved, and therefore they're not regulated by the FDA. We have concerns about their product safety and the consistency, the purity, the potency, et cetera. So we don't know that what's actually on the label is in the bottle, and there may be other things in there that are not on the label. So there are safety concerns about this. And the other myth about it, a couple of actually, one is that people assume these products to be safer than standard hormone therapy that's available in your pharmacy, but there is absolutely no reason to think that the safety profile is any different than what we can get in our local pharmacies. And the other thing is that they are touted to be made just for you. Well, the myth about that is that we don't know at what particular hormone level that, for instance, hot flashes will resolve or sexual functioning will improve, and it really is an individual thing. So we have to go by symptom management rather than by measuring a specific hormone level for each woman.
Interesting. And so why don't we know that about the hormone levels?
Because it's just so individualized for each woman. So I might have my hot flashes controlled at a much lower hormone level than you might. So it might not take as much hormone therapy for me to have control of my hot flashes than it would for you. So we're so individual in that it really isn't helpful to manage levels, and current recommendations are not to measure levels or to use them to guide hormone therapy, but rather to let the symptoms guide hormone therapy.
So it's not that there haven't been studies.
It's not that there haven't been studies. It's that there's no consistent answer.
Got it. Okay. So now I don't want to put the cart before the horse, which I have a tendency to do. We've talked about hot flashes with menopause, but I'm sure you know a list. What's the list of symptoms that people might feel if they're going through this?
Well, hot flashes and night sweats are probably the most common, and 75 to 80% of us are going to have those. But those aren't necessarily the most bothersome symptoms to women. And we actually just did a study here at Mayo in our group looking at this, and it seems that the mood symptoms and the weight are the most bothersome symptoms for women. But there's also sleep disturbances and sexual function changes and even joint aches, as I mentioned earlier. So there are so many symptoms that can go with menopause that we really have to sit down with each woman and pick through what are the most bothersome symptoms and what's the best way to address those.
And what causes the weight gain? What is that all about?
Okay, that's a great question. So weight gain in midlife is complicated, and it's probably not just menopause, but it's probably menopause plus aging. So we know our metabolic rate slows a little bit at the menopausal transition, and that probably does have to do with hormones. We know that we tend to move less after menopause, so they've actually done studies on this, and women do actually move less after they go through the menopausal transition. The third thing is that we redistribute every little bit of fat that we have in the midsection. And the fourth thing that's more of an aging thing is that every year after 50, we lose a little bit of muscle mass, and muscle is burning calories. So again, we're burning fewer calories. So all of this leads up to not only probably a little bit of weight gain in most women, but a weight redistribution to the midsection, which is extremely irritating.
I mean, I literally put on 10 pounds in like a really short amount of time. Do you see that, or is that just some weird fluky thing?
Yes, I have personally put on about the same amount. So yes, and I have never had to worry about weight my entire life. But yeah, we see that, and especially for women who have their ovaries out surgically, I see women who have put on 30 pounds in 6 months and they don't know what happened.
Well, that's just ridiculous.
Yeah. It is ridiculous, and they are, as I said, this is probably the most frustrating thing for women. The hot flashes and the night sweats, I think women can understand. But the weight gain is baffling, especially, I have people coming in my office all the time saying, I'm doing the same things I always did, and it's changing. And that is so incredibly bothersome to women.
Yeah, so what do they do? How do they get rid of it? What do you suggest?
Well, okay, so here's the really hard part of it. There's no simple answer here. I wish there were. But it takes, first of all, finding the new balance. So women have to say, okay, the rules have changed, and acknowledging that for women is validating. So just say, you're right, the rules of your body did change, and somebody forgot to tell you, right? So just figuring out what the new balance is. I can't eat quite as much. I have to exercise more just to maintain. But then when you talk about losing weight, it is exceedingly hard after menopause. It's very, very hard. And we know now that exercise alone isn't going to lead to weight loss. It can help us maintain a weight loss, but it isn't going to lead us to lose weight. So then it's a matter of slowly cutting calories. But if you cut too many calories, if you cut your calorie count too low, your body will literally shut down and you won't burn anything. So we know that some people that have gone through dramatic weight losses or had bariatric surgery, their metabolic rate, even though they lost weight, their metabolic rate shuts down. And even after that, it doesn't seem to go back to normal. So I don't have a great answer or a great solution for this other than you got to figure out the new balance, and you got to aim for slow, steady weight loss. So even cutting 100 calories a day, it would be helpful. And even if you lose 5 pounds in a year, that's a total victory.
Now, what about getting your metabolic rate up? Can you do that? Is that possible?
Well, things like if you build a little bit of muscle mass, you're going to burn more calories. So that's one thing that you can use to help. So, but it's things like that. You're not going to, it's not a matter of taking a pill. So, sad to say.
Got it. Okay. You've been listening to Wellness Talk Radio. I'm Chris Costello, and we are talking with Dr. Stephanie Faubion about her new book, The Menopause Solution. And Doctor, I want to make sure people can find you. So where can they go to find out more about your practice and the book and all that good stuff?
So mayoclinic.org is a good reference for people. It tells about our practice and about menopause in general. The book itself is widely available wherever books are sold, so Amazon, Target, Walmart, Barnes & Noble, etc.
Wonderful. Well, thank you so much. We really appreciate you taking the time to be with us today.
Thanks so much for having me. I appreciate it.
All right.